Off the top of your head, do you happen to know which of Thunderbird 2's pods was most often used in the original Thunderbird television series and both feature films?
No.
Well, you may not know, but I'm sure it's kept you and many other listeners awake at nights worrying about it constantly, I imagine.
Okay.
I thought so.
Far,
anyway, anyway, here we are to give you a top pod ranking countdown thing to find out the most used pod in Thunderbird 2 in Thunderbirds.
Great.
Now,
okay.
Some of you may instantly think that it's going to be Pod 4, since it usually holds Thunderbird 4. But let's not be too hasty here. We've got 6 pods to choose from, all full of useful equipment, but some pods were definitely used more than others.
Right, okay.
Now, for the purposes of this countdown, we are sticking very strictly indeed to the original 32 TV episodes and the 2 feature films. And we won't be counting cameo appearances by a pod. So, for instance, if Pod 3 rolls by on the conveyor but Virgil ultimately picks Pod 6, it doesn't count on the list as a use of Pod 3. It only counts for the purpose of this list if they've actually been loaded aboard Thunderbird 2 and flown away from base on a mission.
Right.
Are we clear?
Understood.
Richard, are you ready?
Yes.
Podsterons, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay then, let's find out the nation's favourite pod. In 6th place, it's Pod 2, which was only used in a measly 1 mission in the original TV series, and that was to fly Chip the annoying kid back home while he slept in the episode Security Hazard. So, yes, for all the amazing equipment held in the other pods, Pod 2 apparently has a bed. So that's good to know, isn't it? In 5th place, it's Pod 1, which was only used in 2 missions in the television series. In 4th place, Pod 6, used in just 4 missions. Here's where it gets interesting.
Does it?
In 3rd place,
yes,
it's Pod 4. So if you thought it was Pod 4, you were incorrect, Podsterons. Pod 4 was used in 7 episodes of the television series, plus the feature film Thunderbird Go, for a total of 8 missions.
Okay.
So, in 2nd place, it's Pod 5, which was also used in 7 episodes of the television series, and Thunderbird Go, and Thunderbird 6, making it 9 missions for Pod 5. So, if you've been keeping track, you'll know that in 1st place, it's Pod 3, used in 11 missions on television. So what is in Pod 3 that makes it so special? Well, let me list those things for you. The elevator cars, the Domo, even the Mole and the Firefly on occasion. However, there's another reason why Pod 3 scores so high on this list, and that is because Pod 3 was generally the pod chosen for missions when they never actually used the pod equipment. Particularly in the 2nd season, it just seemed to be Virgil's kind of go-to generic pod whenever he needed a pod on Thunderbird 2 to get it flying.
Oh, okay.
Now, we should stress that there is a bit of room to fudge things with this list in the accuracy department, since the show was not 100% consistent in its use of stock footage around the Thunderbird 2 launch sequence. For example, in the episode Day of Disaster, after Virgil selects Pod 4, and Thunderbird 2 slowly lowers onto Pod 4, as it trundles out of the launch bay, we can now see Pod 2 on Thunderbird 2's left, which means that Thunderbird 2 must have Pod 3 in it at that point. Except that when it gets to the danger zone and drops off the pod in the river, it's Pod 4 again, because the mission needed Thunderbird 4. So, there's also some episodes where we just don't know which pod was taken because we're not shown or told, and even a couple of episodes where Jeff tells the boys which number pod to take, they agree with him, and then they take a different pod entirely. But... even if the number of appearances aren't 100% correct, depending on how you look at it, the overall ranking should be. So that is 5th place Pod 1. Sorry, 6th place Pod 2, 5th place Pod 1, 4th place Pod 6, 3rd place Pod 4, 2nd place Pod 5, and 1st place Pod 3.
Amazing.
There you go.
Crikey.
Now, I've got a follow-up fact to that, which is the most listened to pods of the podcast. So, starting with... No, we're not doing that list because that would take 3 hours.
Yeah.
But isn't that interesting? It's amazing, the continuity thing as well, because, these days, you could not get away with it. This is kind of getting to Game of Thrones coffee cup moment.
That's right.
But we're all much more forgiving because it's from the 1960s.
Yes, and as we often say, it was only meant to be seen once. It wasn't meant to be released on video and DVD and Blu-ray. We weren't supposed to pour over every episode more than once.
No pouring at all, in fact.
No.